Welcome to A Drink of Wisdom with Jay Wise and Nathan Drinkard. I'm your host, Cody Ward. Thank you for spending some of your time with us tonight. And as a reminder to all our listeners, besides being on all your favorite podcast platforms, A Drink of Wisdom is also on YouTube with each show segment available. Head on over, if you like what you hear, we would appreciate your subscription. What's going on, guys? Week 1 in the books. We got lots of football. We got conference finals to talk about. It's fun stuff.
Yep. Got the collapse of the century occurring before our very eyes, but we'll get to that shortly. It's the drink, it's the beer, and the wisdom is about to get somebody. I'm just gonna tell you that much.
Let's talk some sports, baby. Yeah, you know what it is. Pull up a seat because you know we got to speak. We're going to talk about, hey, you heard him, the collapse, week 1. Hey, Cody, take it off, man. Let's do your thing.
All right, man. In episode 3, the NBA Conference Finals are upon us with some surprising faces. Week 1 in the NFL is a wrap, and the Big Ten unwraps their season hiatus. Let's go ahead and talk about those semifinals. The last ones are in the books. And in a seismic shift, the Denver Nuggets stunned the Clippers, taking Game 7 and booting a championship favorite out of the bubble. Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic led the way for the Nuggets, with Murray dropping 40 and Jokic posting a 16-point triple-double. Nuggets blew away a halftime lead and the Nuggets blew another half. The Clippers blew a halftime lead, as I'm blowing this whole segment, and completely fell apart down the stretch. Kawhi and Paul George combined for 24 points on just 10 of 38 shooting, including a disastrous fourth quarter. Despite the additions, the Clippers blow another 3-1 lead, and will head home while Denver advances to play the other Los Angeles team. So, Jay, it's pretty impressive, right? What happened to the Clippers? What happened?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Let me start with this, because I think it's important. As much as of a disgrace that the Clippers were in games 5, 6, and 7 in totality, what we know what happened. Let's just take a minute to pause and give credit to the Denver Nuggets. This is something that has never happened in the NBA before, where a team has overcame multiple 3-1 deficits in a single postseason. And they did it back-to-back in a bubble, so you're talking about something we've never done. We've never seen an NBA playoff like this, coming off 5 or 6 months shutdown, and just seeing this, how they've looked at various stretches to find themselves in 3-1 deficits, and then they have the wherewithal to overcome it. And we've known about Nikola Jokic, but Jamal Murray has blossomed before our very eyes. He deserves a lot of credit. We talked about, I think, breakout players of the year. Drink had Tatum. I had Jamal Murray. Tatum came along a lot quicker than Murray did. It seems like Murray was waiting for the playoffs to, start putting up 40 and 50 a game. But both of them are something special to watch. But let's get to the real matter at hand, because make no mistake about it, the Los Angeles Clippers. Keep in mind this with last night and going back to games 5 and 6. This is one of the biggest choke jobs I have ever seen, and I don't say that lightly. And I don't know where you'd rank it historically, comparatively to the biggest choke job, because no team's ever lost a 3-0 lead, but there've been 13 3-1 leads, and the Clippers they got this one. They had one in 2015 under Doc Rivers, and we'll get to him. But let's think about that. You get a 3-1 lead, and let's just read through some numbers. In Game 5, the Clippers had a 56-44 halftime lead. They get outscored 67-49 in that game. Let's look at some individual players. Well, I'm combining Kawhi and Paul George. They gave you 62 points, just under 50% shooting. They hit 9 threes. They make all their free throws. But then Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, they give you 10 points combined. Now, keep in mind, in the regular season, these are 2 guys coming off your bench. They got 2 6-men. They have the last 2 6-man award winners. And yet in this particular game, they give you 10 points on 5 for 17 shooting. It's not good enough. In Game 6, they come out there. They build a 63-47 halftime lead, and they get outscored by 29 in the second half, 64-35. So they went from being up 16 to losing by 13. Kawhi and Paul George again, a little less efficient than they were in Game 5, but they still give you 58 points. They still make 17 of 18 from the foul line. They hit half of their threes. Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, they gave you a little bit more. They gave you 19 points combined. But again, Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell gave 18 and 18 points per game respectively this season. So I think 37 points from their 2 sixth men. And then I want to throw in Zubac, Morris, and Beverly because they did absolutely nothing in this game. 9 points between the three of them on 3 for 13. Absolutely nothing. And then we get to Game 7, which just completes the collapse and the trifecta. 56-54 at the half. Clippers lead again. Not a big lead, but they were in the game. They actually went up by 7 early in the third quarter. And I believe Denver goes on a 35-13 run, which would include part of the fourth quarter that I came out to enjoy. But outscored 50-33 in the second half. 68 points over Game 6 and 7 in both of their halves. 68 points. 68 points over 4 quarters for those 2 second halves. Folks, 68 points. There are teams that can acquire that in 1 half these days. And the Clippers put it up in 4 quarters. You lose by 15. In a Game 7, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, 24 points. You read him. 10 for 38. 4 for 18 from 3. And 1 free throw attempt. 1 foul attempt. 1 foul shot. It's just something that I've never seen before. Montrezl Harrell, 20 points. That was the first time he cracked 20 points the entire playoffs, by the way. And Lou Williams was not good. Lou Williams was 3 for 11. So the Clippers, part of the issue they've had is that, and part of the reason I've had so much faith in them, and I have been on record since before the season. I've been with the Clippers. Drink has been with the Lakers. And we pretty much have stuck with those respective teams the entire season, and even through the shutdown. That's where we've been at. And one of the reasons I've been with the Clippers is I was of the opinion that their depth would be able to overcome the perhaps LeBron and AD being able to give you a little bit more than Kawhi and Paul George, particularly with me definitely with the inconsistencies of Paul George, having more faith in Anthony Davis than Paul George. That to me was the big difference where the Lakers could make up. But the overall depth of the Clippers is what I had faith in. And that depth was not on display in these playoffs. We know Montrezl Harrell entered the bubble late, and he was not the same, folks, throughout this playoffs. This is a guy who, over this playoff, in these 2 series, 10.5 points a game. And then Lou Williams, same thing, 13 points a game. So what you have here is a guy, you had 2 players coming off your bench, 37 points a game they gave you, and they've dropped down to about 23 to 24 points, minus 13, 14 points from arguably your third and fourth best players. That's a big deal. So you have that going for you, and then you combine that all in that Game 7 with Kawhi Leonard going 1 for 11 in the second half, 6 for 22 overall, and these guys could not hit the broadside of a barn in the fourth quarter. These fellas did not make a shot attempt in the fourth quarter until the 5-minute mark when JaMychal Green found himself on the offensive glass for a putback dunk.
Yeah.
And that's still, I mean, that goes in the books of the shot attempt, but I mean, we could all make that if we had a little more height about us, or at least I hope we could. Listen, I got to get to some quotes. I really do, because not only do you collapse and you look like a complete embarrassment, and now you're approaching 50 years as a franchise that still can't find the conference finals. Remember, this happened in 2015 as well. They had a 3-1 lead in the semifinals I believe it was against Houston, and they blew that too. They found a way. This is what Lou Williams said. We had championship expectations. We had the talent to do it. We did not have the chemistry to do it. Okay. Paul George says, well, internally, we've always felt this isn't a championship or bust year for us. We didn't have enough time together. Okay. Doc Rivers. I got 2. Doc has 2. I just knew conditioning-wise, like we had guys that just couldn't play minutes, and that's hard, you know. I mean, there were 2 or 3 times a night we actually started getting it going, and the guy had to come out. That's tragic. This is also from Doc Rivers. Honestly, you could just see the difference in the 2 teams. That team's been together. We haven't. And you could see it as the games went on. You know what? This is a bunch of nonsense. Every quote I just read to you is a bunch of literal nonsense. And so basically what they're telling you is, number one, we're making excuses. And you know how we work around here. We don't want to hear it. We want results. When the Los Angeles Clippers, with the billion-dollar owner, with the front office that they have, and an excellent coaching staff, not only do you have a championship coach, you have a championship you have a championship coach as an assistant in Ty Lue, and you have also Sam Cassell, who's highly respected. You have all that going for you. They bring in Kawhi Leonard. They bring in Paul George to be the Robin to his Batman. I talked about it early in the year.
Gave up 5 picks for him too. 5.
Yeah, very good player.
And not only that, I talked about the front office of the Clippers being able to outmaneuver the Lakers at the trade deadline, which is exactly what happened. They bring in Marcus Morris. Big deal. They bring in Reggie Jackson. Less of a big deal, but another guy to just strengthen their already lucrative depth. So you have all these different things going for you. And I get it. I get that Paul George has been in and out. I get Kawhi Leonard's load management.
Hey, don't forget about the Joakim Noah little joint too, because Lakers was trying to get him as well.
I'm glad you brought that up because you know I forgot about that one. I probably forget it. He was probably wearing a mask the whole time. But anyway, so I get it. And they have had the Clippers. There are reasons for some of their inconsistency, especially throughout the regular season. But come playoff time, everybody was together. They were not missing any pieces. And even, listen, let's just say there were chemistry concerns. Let's just say guys were tired. Well, that still doesn't excuse blowing a 3-1 lead. Really, your chemistry was so bad? I'm impressed. Well, I'm impressed then. You had suspect chemistry to the degree that you could still build a 3-1 lead and then blow it. It's inexcusable. These guys, and one thing I give credit, the only thing I would tell, I told Drink this earlier, the only thing I'm really upset, and I'm not even upset, but I think it's a legitimate criticism of Kawhi Leonard, because we know last night was an absolute anomaly, in my opinion, of a Kawhi Leonard game. Kawhi Leonard is about as consistent and money as it gets in this league. I truly believe that, and we've seen it. And we saw it just last season when he carried a Toronto Raptor team that was less talented than this Clipper team is right now. That's what I believe. And he carried them to a title. Did he have some assistance? Did he have some good luck with injuries for the Golden State Warriors? He sure did. He did. But he still got the job done. Not only that, he carried them through series previous to that. We remember, I've said this previously. They don't make it out of the second round of last season against Philly without Kawhi Leonard. As much as people would like to tell you that, the Raptors is 17-5 without Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, they was about the same without Kawhi Leonard. They didn't have Kawhi Leonard all year this year, but we figured out in the playoffs that he couldn't get it done. But the Clippers, it is really difficult to find exact words to outline what a ridiculous disgrace this was, of historic proportions. Because when you looked at the first round series between the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz and how that series transpired, it is still very clear to me the Clippers are a superior, from a talent perspective. We don't have the results that verify it, but they look like a superior team to me than either one of those teams, the way they was flopping around. And again, you build a 3-1 lead. So, but it seems to me the entire season and into the bubble, into the playoffs, they had that off and on switch. And I've told both of you this before. The Clippers, to me, one of their problems was they seem to know how good they are. And they just think they have that ability, like we've seen it with the Warriors in years past, where they can just hit that switch. And they just weren't able to do so. And that is the problem, and that is the one criticism I would really lay at Kawhi Leonard, is because I don't think on this team, when you have this many alpha personalities with Marcus Morris, with Pat Beverly, all these different guys, it's just a lot of talking. Kawhi Leonard is not a vocal leader to keep all those guys in line. Kawhi Leonard sets the example. On a team like this, that may not be quite enough. That may be one of the problems and one of the issues you can really lay at this feet, but there is plenty of more blame to be around. Paul George, I'm here to tell you right now, Paul George is not a superstar. The way he performed throughout the entire year, the inconsistency he displayed, and now you want to double down on it with excuses? I don't want to hear from Paul George anymore. I've seen enough. I really have. Lou Williams, God bless him, one of the best six men this league has ever seen, but he's not a playoff performer. His game does not translate into the playoffs. With some of the things, the referees swallow their whistles in the postseason. A lot of his game is predicated on getting contact with some of the moves that he possesses. They don't blow the whistle as much. So Lou Williams tends to struggle in the playoffs. And Montrezl Harrell, I don't know what happened to him. But when Montrezl Harrell left the bubble and came back, he was absolutely not the same player. I tell you again, he scored more than 15 points just twice in 13 playoff games. This is coming from a guy that just won Sixth Man of the Year award, averaging almost 19 points a game. And he cracks more than 15 points twice, and last night was his first game under 20 points. And when Doc Rivers is talking about conditioning, I believe he was talking about Montrezl Harrell. I don't know that for a fact, but I think that's who he's talking about. And then there's Doc Rivers. Folks, let me tell you something. As far as coaches go, the NBA is tough on coaches. We've seen it. You could win Coach of the Year and get fired. Ask Dwayne Casey. Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan's gone. Been doing an exceptional job under difficult circumstances with the Indiana Pacers for the last several years. Super guy, Victor Oladipo. The dude, we can't get the guy in the lineup. Then you got Sabonis. Sabonis is out this year. He looked like their best player all of a sudden. They couldn't get it full strength, and they couldn't get it done in the first round because they were simply undermanned. Well, Nate McMillan got fired for it. I don't think it was right, but that's a story for another day. Billy Donovan. Okay, Oklahoma City and Billy Donovan, they couldn't get together on a contract despite that was the best coaching job Billy Donovan's done in his NBA career. You think about some of the teams he's had in the past with the Kevin Durant's, Russell Westbrook, Ibaka, the list goes on and on. He has never brought a team from expectations, because we talked about it. We didn't see nothing from this team. We assumed Chris Paul was cooked, and because of that, we didn't see anything from them. They do their thing, they take the Houston Rockets, the team that Chris Paul came from, the team that supposedly upgraded with the Russell Westbrook, and they take him to 7 games. But Billy Donovan can't keep his job. And I say that to say, what has Doc Rivers done recently? I think we need to have that discussion, because what you have here, and Doc Rivers, again, take nothing away from him. He's a championship coach, and he's highly respected. He's been around a long time. Do you know Doc Rivers has now blown 3-1 leads in the playoffs? We have 2003 with the Orlando Magic. We have 2015 with the Clippers. And we have this atrocity that we just witnessed. And this is the one that is most inexcusable. In 2015, you could give me something like, oh, well, you know, Chris Paul, he's a little small. He can't really lead you to where you want to go. Well, but you got Blake Griffin too. Well, Blake Griffin, he's soft. You know, he can't, his game don't translate in the playoffs because he got, you know, he's not tough enough. And you know about DeAndre Jordan can't hit a free throw. So what hope do we have for him? So you had all those built-in excuses that you could maybe get away with, despite the fact that I don't think they're good enough. Talent-wise, it looked like you might have been able to do something besides get bounced out in the first or second round every single year and blow multiple 3-1 leads. But there's no excuse for this one. No excuse. And we got to look at Doc Rivers. Why have there been 13 3-1 leads blown in NBA history and you have 3 of them? These are the type of questions we got to ask. But overall, absolute disgrace. There's no excuse for it. And there is no excuse for the amount of excuses the Clippers are trying to feed us. Don't buy it.
Woo! Sorry, I was getting my PG-13 on. Here's the deal. Do we know that Paul George had more fouls than field goals made in that game? He had more fouls than field goals made.
I didn't catch that, but I did use that on Marc Gasol last show I was on.
Right? Did we also know that Murray outscored Kawhi and Paul George combined?
Yep. Almost doubled them up, didn't he? 40 to 24.
Yep.
That's
I think it's time we call Denver more than inexperienced boys. They're starting to grow into a grown man team here. We see what they do when they backs against the walls, when the pressure is up the hottest. If you can't take the heat, get out the kitchen. Where they standing right by the stove because they've been taking some heat. I think it's about time we put a little more respect, me included. You know what? Me number one. Put a little more respect on the Denver Nuggets here. Here's the deal. For one, I didn't really take them serious. I thought last year was a bit of a fluke, but I gotta respect them this year. They showed me something this year. So therefore, leading with me, I gotta put more respect on Denver's name. You said something about the dynamic duos. The Clippers is one of the few teams that have two dynamic duos. They have Kawhi and Paul George in the starting lineup, and then you got Lou Williams, sweet chicken Lou that is, and then you got Montrezl, I don't want to be here, Harold. Here's the deal. Both of those duos for the Clippers fell flat. Both duos. So you got four guys that's playmakers, award-winning guys, however you want to look at it. Kawhi was second team All-NBA. Paul George did not make an All-NBA team this year. But then you got Harold, sixth man of the year. Lou Williams, 2-3-time sixth man of the year. So I say that to say you are one of the few teams, as good as the Lakers is, the Lakers ain't got a dynamic duo coming off the bench. Matter of fact, as good as the Nuggets is, they definitely didn't have one either. Milwaukee didn't have one. Who else left? Miami, they don't have one. Who else we got? The Celtics, they don't have one. So you was in a very unique situation to have two guys like that to come off your bench that garnish as much respect as they garnish and to hit you with the rizzle, sizzle, flat line. Because that's what they did. You might as well left them outside of the bubble because that's about as much as they did. Matter of fact, I heard Daniel House did more than they did, and he got sent home, for breaking protocol, as they say. So that ain't it. Both dynamic duos lack the dynamic portion. I want to hit on Paul Millsap. Paul Millsap is a guy that gets kind of forgotten when we talk about the Denver Nuggets. But I'm going to tell you like this. He was right on time in this series. He was right on time. When they needed an experienced, timely bucket and Paul Millsap touched the ball, he either hit his threes or he got an and one opportunity. And listen, if you go back to Game 6 and you actually look at when that game turned around in Game 6, it was when Millsap went up, third quarter, Millsap go up, Marcus Morris, also known as the goon of all goons, he comes down, he gets to doing what he does, and he gets in it with Millsap. And you know what Millsap told him? Do I look like Luka Doncic? You better get up out of here. You better miss me with that. You ain't coming to try to bully me. You step on my ankle, I got something for you, And that game turned around at that point. I looked at him in Game 7, same exact thing. When they bring that double team to Murray, when they bring that double team to Jokic, Millsap said, hey, hold my Gatorade. And he hit his shots, he hit his free throws, and he made timely buckets. So I want to give a big shout out to Paul Millsap because we know he's on the back end of his career. So this matters a little more for him to try to get some type of success out of his time with Denver. I like it. I gotta, point that out. Mike Malone. Listen, before last series, if I remember correctly, Charles Barkley was killing Mike Malone. Why? Because we was hearing rumblings where he had to pretty much beg his players to want to play. Like they was out here with the apathetic attitude, we kind of want to play, we don't. And you got NFL level players, they're not going to cut it. Charles Barkley hit it on the head. If you got to beg your players to play, you shouldn't be here. Ever since I heard that comment, I've seen a different Denver Nuggets team. I don't know what Mike Malone went and told these guys, but he really made them pick it up. And they've been on fire ever since they started these elimination games. 6-0 in the elimination game so far in this postseason. That is something to be applauded for. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say you want to get yourself in those situations, but if you're in those situations and you go 6-0, that is something that's very unique and eye-popping, and you got to give them some credit for that. And I think that credit started with Mike Malone because he had to find some way to motivate these guys, some way to connect to these guys, and it paid off. Now you're in the Western Conference Finals. Now, you brought up a point about one Doc Rivers. Hey, Doc, you out here living on that championship, buddy. You're living on that championship. Your line of credit about to be up. It is about no more tabs. Put it on my tab. No, that's about to be over with, buddy. You starting to be known more as a choke artist than the actual championship coach. Can't take that championship away from you, but we can't take away them 3-1 leads either that you've been blowing out here like hotcakes. All right? You out here blowing 3-1 leads like they on sale, and that ain't gonna cut it. That ain't gonna cut it, buddy. You might want to start closing some games. And listen, I would not be surprised if the Clippers decide to shake things up, and Doc Rivers be one of the guys they shake up. You know, listen, you can't just be choking everything away and think it's all good. You are just as much to blame as a player would be. So we sitting here talking about Sweet Chicken Lou and Montrezl Harrell, then we got to be talking about Dr. Choke Artist Rivers because he's out here just choking it away, all right? No one told you to go get those Popeyes biscuits, but you got them anyway. So you should have had something to drink to wash them down. You made that choice, all right? You made that choice. So if you want to choke, you do that on your own time. Don't wait until we get to the playoffs to do that. You choke on your own time. You dig? We no more of that, all right? So Doc Rivers, I'm very interested to see in the oncoming months now what happens with that. Do they keep him around? Do they flirt with bumping Tyronn Lue up to head coach and, you know, moving on from Luke? It's some things they can do here. I'm very interested. But, hey, Doc Rivers, make sure you got some water with those biscuits. Now, I've been saying this for quite a while, but let's say I didn't have quite the receipt to back this up. Well, I finally got that receipt, folks. And I got an e-receipt and a paper copy if you want it. And here's the deal. I don't want to hear no more of this Kawhi is better than LeBron James. He's the best player. I need to compare him to Michael Jordan because that mid-range game. I don't give a rip about rip. I don't want to hear none of that bull rip. None of it. You can kiss my whole, you know what it is. Look, listen. You gonna tell me right now if LeBron James was in that same shit? LeBron James, right? He got swept by one of the best teams in NBA history. And we tore him up. When we couldn't even name the second best player on that team. Like, think about this, right? He goes, and they should have won game one in 2018. They should have won game one. J.R. Smith went and sipped some of that Henny in the fourth quarter, or overtime. In the fourth quarter, he's sipping Henny, and they lost that game. But think about this now. Who was LeBron James' support? Because Kyrie wasn't there no more. Kevin Love was barely there, but he had the handicap sign, so you know you can't mess with him when the light on. So who was his next best player, though? And we ripped LeBron James because, bro, you can't get swept, bro. You can't be the best player in the world and get swept. Even though that was more reasonable than what we just seen the Clippers do last night. Because he out there trying to make it happen, and he got Jordan Clarkson over here with his 00 jersey or whatever. Like, what are we doing here? So I want that same pressure applied to Kawhi. Stop comparing Kawhi to LeBron, especially to Jordan. That's just downright disrespectful. If you're going to tell me that, what he did wasn't that bad. No. If you give him the positive, you got to give him the negative as well. So until he shows that he can really put a team on his back and get it done, because don't give me that Toronto crap, because every time somebody was like, hey, he put Toronto on his back, no, he might have put Kevin Durant's Achilles, Klay Thompson knee. I'm wrong? I'm looking at that face over there. Jay, I'm wrong? They didn't get hurt in the finals? Klay Thompson? Kevin Durant?
I said Kawhi Leonard was assisted. He was assisted by some good luck for him and his team that the Warriors were subject to some bad injury luck, but I still don't take that away from Kawhi Leonard.
No. I didn't say I'll take away the championship. I'm talking about the putting the team on your back thing. The championship is the championship.
I still think that team was on his back. I mean, this is my point. We see it this year. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, Toronto, look at how great they are. They're still doing it without Kawhi." And then we see it's money time in the semifinals against Boston, and they don't have that dude that can get it done.
Because it's a difference between being a closer and being the guy that carries the team. Kawhi was a closer for Toronto. Toronto don't have a closer this year. I didn't say he wasn't a good closer, but when you need him to put the team on his back, he sure look a little tired out there. Sure look a little exhausted out there. It's a difference. Kyrie was a closer. Now put the team on Kyrie back and see how they work out for you. It's a difference to this.
I agree with that.
It's levels to this. He was a good closer. I can't knock Kawhi on that. But when you make him go from A to Z instead of him going from N to Z, when he lose half of the alphabet and don't have as much responsibility, it's a difference. And we've seen that this year. Nonetheless, everybody's saying Paul George needs to show up, and what you do, because you give away 5 picks, you need to show up. But I'm sorry. You cannot put him on the same level as LeBron when you're talking about all-around leadership, having a team on your back from A to Z. It's just levels to this, and evidently Kawhi missed a few. And I'm tired of hearing that crap. Now, back to your point on the on and off switch. That ain't it. They need to call an electrician because evidently the wires ain't running right in the house. Because we got a whole bunch of spots in here where the lights don't work. If you were talking about this on and off switch, you know what I'm saying? They need them some of that. Alexa, turn on the lights. That's what they need because everything the switches stop working. You dig? So as far as that on and off switch, that's Doc Rivers' fault. He should not allow that crap in the regular season, and then they put that same bull crap in the playoffs, and we seen how that worked out. Hey Doc, they bit you in the butt on that one. Popeye's biscuits. All right. Michael Porter Jr., right? He made a point. He made this point in the first series, I think. Maybe it was in this series where he said he think Denver needs to get more players involved because it came to a point where it was just Jokic and Murray. And you got Michael Porter Jr. out there with a please help me sign. I'm here to play. Anytime you want to pass me the ball, I'm here, fellas. And they got real stagnant. And that's when the Clippers was just running wild on them because they wasn't realizing, y'all got some other good players that should touch the ball a little more. Maybe if you let them touch the ball, y'all might just give yourself a chance. Since Michael Porter made that comment, do you know, since he made that, they won, they won, so it was down 3-1. So, yeah, I want to say he made the comment in game 3. I want to say he made the comment. And since then, since he's been getting his touches, they've been balling, straight balling. And I don't understand why it took him to say that, why you don't understand that from the start when you're on this level of basketball, but it did. So for some reason, he had to say it, they did it, and I just wanted to bring that up to say, Mike Malone, good job for listening to your players. Michael Porter Jr., good job for holding your teammates accountable and moving that along. Now, when it comes to Denver, it's simple enough. Murray is the scorer and the closer. That's what he do. He scored the ball, he closed it. Jokic, he does everything else. You keep that recipe going, you got a strong chance of being in any game. I said this earlier in the series. If Jokic is out here being the scorer and Murray is just kind of out here just doing his thing, that's not going to get the job done. You need what you got last night, which was an all-around game from Jokic, and I mean all-around game from Jokic, and you need Murray to go ahead and drop you a hot 40, 50 burger. That's how you get it done on this team. It's roles. Everybody have roles on these NBA teams. And when you stick to your role, that's how you play your best ball. You always mess up when you try to get in somebody else's lane without turning on your turn signals. And I kind of feel like that's what the Nuggets was doing at some point. And then they start holding each other accountable, playing to their strengths, their weaknesses, And that's what got them back in the series, and that's what won the series for them, to me. Just my opinion. And then last but not least, you said it. Lou Williams, Harold, they didn't want to be there. Let's be real here. We heard the rumblings that it was multiple Clipper players that did not want to come to the bubble from the beginning. I'm a firm believer that Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell was two of those players that didn't want to come back to the bubble. They was done playing. They didn't really want to play no more. COVID had got the best of them, and they just wanted to sit it out. But the NBA did their mandates, and hey, you won't get paid this if you don't play, whoop-de-whoop. And Montrezl Harrell at the last hour said, all right, I guess I'll show up when the playoffs start. Lou Will, Magic City, let me get some wings with the extra sauce on them. You got that type of behavior because they didn't want to be there. That's clear as enough. That's the type of behavior you get when you don't want to do something. You wait till the last minute. You out somewhere you don't want to. You out somewhere you don't supposed to be, knowing doggone well is a process that you got to go through once you show up back to the bubble. But you don't care because you don't care to be in the bubble. That was the attitude that we got from both of those players. They needed both of those players. It was unacceptable. But as you said, Denver deserves a lot of credit. And best believe the Lakers would not be with the BS that the Clippers would be. LeBron is going to get these boys ready. They know what's coming. And you know what it is. It's the Western Conference Finals, baby. The Lakers versus the Nuggets.
All right. Well, I'll keep it really brief since we got some other stuff to get to today. This isn't an exclusive look at the Nuggets and Clippers. I will just say that the Clippers really felt like a team that was a bunch of hired mercenaries. This team was completely ripped off from the frame-off overhaul. And you ever rebuilt a car from scratch? You spend all this money on parts, you spend all this money on engines and this and that, but you got a bunch of bugs and stuff ain't working together. I don't care how much money you spend. It ain't going to run right. And it felt like when their backs got up against the wall, this team just didn't have the focus they should have. And we've seen it with other teams. LeBron's Heat, they didn't win their first season. They got to the playoffs. They got bounced. They had to come back and become more of a team and more of a unit. And you got to think, none of these Clippers are drafted here, really. There's no one to them where, but they don't really have cohesion, and where the Nuggets could kind of rally around hey guys, we got to do this, and a guy like Paul Millsap steps up, Michael Porter Jr. calls the team out, or Jokic starts doing what he's got to do. Clippers don't have that. Like you said, I think there's some leadership issues, but I also would be cautious to crazily overreact. They still have Doc Rivers is still a very good NBA coach. I mean, we got some skeletons to worry about, no doubt, but the Clippers might really good again next year. I don't know if they're going to have to do a bunch of stuff, but we'll see. But yeah, this felt like that the Denver Nuggets were not the more talented team, but they were the better team when it counted, and they got them the win.